Hello, and thanks for joining us. From an apocalyptic psychological horror to the Champs-Élysées festival, welcome to today's film show.
The door was already open when you got there.
Yeah.
Then who opened it?
And we're joined in the studio by our film critic Lisa Nesselson. Lisa, hello.
Hello, Eve.
Thank you for joining us. Now, starting with a scary-sounding movie, It Comes at Night. It's the second film by writer-director Trey Edward Shultz. Scary stuff?
In a word, no, not really. It's a great title. It Comes at Night. It sounds scary, but not for this movie. It doesn't describe this movie. They want you to believe it's edge-of-your-seat stuff, and it has actually been given here in France the relatively rare you must be 12 years old to get in rating. But I can't blame them for trying to attract people into theaters by implying that there's going to be lots of thrills and chills. But I think you also can't blame eventual filmgoers who believe they've gotten rooked or not really, but they haven't been straight with them, more or less deliberately misled. Is this how you would sell a semi-intellectual sociological drama? Take a look.
If you're lying to me, I will kill you.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Well, I've read some of the reviews. One said it's being hailed as one of the best horrors of 2017, and it does look pretty creepy there.
It does look pretty creepy, but instead of that voice saying, it's okay, they should be saying, it's so-so, it's so-so. I saw this at a sneak preview with 400 or 500 other people, and there were no collective gasps or nervous giggling, you know, when you have a really scary movie and you're seeing it in a group. It starts with the grisly death of an older man outside a house in the woods, and gas masks are apparently needed. So this is a very promising start. You really don't know what's going on. But the family in that house is now down to 3 members. Dad, who's white, his wife, who's black, and their very sensitive biracial 17-year-old son. A man breaks into their house, and when he's caught, he claims that he's just looking for water for his family, and could they please help him out? And so we're put in the position of wondering, should the main protagonists reach out, be helpful? Should they invite the intruder to move in with his young wife and son? And I gather this is supposed to be a riff on whether you should stick to yourself or reach out to people in need, which is a really interesting question, especially in these jingoistic times where it's suddenly acceptable to say, America first, make America great again. Those other people, that's their problem. They need to stay outside, even though the world is interconnected now, the modern world, but the way it's treated here just falls short. Fears, survival instincts, paranoia, very fine actors. This should be riveting, but it's not. It should stick with you, but it doesn't.
Okay, well, that's It Comes at Night. And the Champs-Élysées Film Festival is on in Paris. Earlier this week, I interviewed 2 guests of honour, the Grease director Randall Kleiser and the Palme d'Or winning director of Scarecrow, Jerry Schatzberg, who was the first filmmaker to give Al Pacino a movie role. You can watch the interview online. You've seen a good few movies at this event. How's the festival?
The festival's pretty wonderful this year, actually, and there is no doubt about where it takes place, up and down what is alleged to be the most beautiful avenue in the world. What is less obvious, but hinted at in the poster, of course, is that this festival bills itself as a Franco-American event, and that is absolutely true. There is a professional sidebar for films in progress, but it is really a down-to-earth, anyone can march up to the box office and be adventurous and take a chance on an independent French or American film or a classic presented by one of the film personalities that they present. So you should consider planning your vacation, your holiday here in Paris next year in June, so you can take advantage of this. One of the highlights for me was definitely the world premiere of the original musical score performed on electric guitar and flute for 4 of the Alice comedies. Now, what are those? I was almost completely ignorant about these treasures of animation directed by Walt Disney back in the 1920s. And so we have have a famous American of French heritage, Disney. They were inspired by Alice in Wonderland, and they use a special effect technique that I have to say is still dazzling 100 years later. They're surreal, they're irreverent, they're funny, and they're short films with a real live little girl who is surrounded by these wacky hand-drawn animated critters. A French distribution company had a hand in the restoration, and the second batch of these glorious films will be out in France. We'll have to wait until December 12th. Meanwhile, December 6th. Meanwhile, here's a hint of the tone and the humor.
That looks fabulous, but presumably there are some more recent films with some real-life humans.
Indeed, there are. That's one of the things this festival has going for it. I was really grabbed by the tone of Mike Ott's California Dreams, which we're told is a documentary, but I find it hard to believe that the half a dozen protagonists are really this unguarded. It's about 5 people who live not far from Hollywood and dream of acting, but to put it diplomatically, I don't think they're going to have careers in film unless climate change gets to the point where hell freezes over. They're lovely people, but they're stuck in dead-end jobs. They go on auditions. They have dreams. Some reviewers found this exploitative. I took it as being affectionate, especially the central character, which is a guy in his late 20s named Corey who lives with his mom and hasn't had a job for 8 years. Fascinating stuff.
Okay, well, another French festival, this one in its 41st year, has just wrapped up in the lakeside French town of Annecy. They call it the Cannes of Animation. Is that justified?
I think it is in terms of programming, attendance, mood. The programmers watched 2,850 submissions and chose 250. And I think part of the reason it has such a young, energetic vibe is that fully 25% of the 9,000 accredited attendees are students of animation. Hollywood comes shopping for French animators, but also young animators from all over the world. And this year, the programmer achieved parity, equal numbers of films by men and women in the shorts for the first time, because he had noticed that graduation films from animation schools, that there were more women actually graduating in animation than men. This year they had a spotlight on China, and I think this is very ingenious. A lot of Chinese artists are incorporating animation into their art so that the censorship that would come down on a real animated film, they can say, no, that's not a film, that's an art project. So let's take a look at France 24's report about what went on in Annecy.
Zombellennium is the latest animation by Alexis Ducor and Arthur Dupin. It was first presented at Cannes before opening the Annecy Festival. The film originates from a comic strip of the same name. Its creator says as soon as he started drawing, he had animation in mind.
It was previously a comic strip that began in the Spirou newspaper, but right from the beginning I always wanted to see these characters move. Even when I draw comics, I see the characters move, speak, have a certain voice, move to certain music. For me, that's really important.
French animation is wide-ranging. It is a world leader both in terms of technical know-how as well as creativity.
French film animation holds the 3rd spot internationally after the United States and Japan, and we sometimes draw level with Japan and occasionally surpass them. And so we're in a big but fair race against Japan. So that goes to show the importance of French film animation. And why is this the case? It's a question that often arises. I believe that we have a tradition in our culture, a pictorial tradition, a tradition of narrative. That means French culture lends itself well to animated cinema.
An injection of government funding in the 1980s helped the sector to grow. And then in 1998, one film changed the face of the industry, Kiriko and the Sorceress by Michel Oslo.
It's unbelievable. This film that came out when he had no budget for the trailer, which had to compete with the big Disney movie of the year, which was Mulan, which 1 million people went to see. And just like that, all the other filmmakers turned to the one who produced it and said, oh, maybe we can make money with a cartoon.
Creating moving images that bring characters to life is a passion for students at Gobelin. the world's top animation school.
Becoming a Gobelin student was a dream come true. It's really great.
The industry is extremely buoyant, with employment close to 100%. France produces around a dozen animated films each year, moving stories that have a bright future ahead.
Well, also shown in Annecy and out in French cinemas this week is The Big Bad Fox and Other Stories.
This is an absolutely delightful feature animation for kids and grown-ups. How do I know that? Because I saw it with hundreds of people at the Champs-Élysées Film Festival. And I have to say, French adults sometimes fit that stereotype of being rude and thoughtless, but French kids are so well behaved at the movies. It's glorious. This is based on a book by Benjamin Renner, who burst on the scene with his adaptation of Ernest and Celestine. And in that, he was adapting the watercolors of the original author. But here he gets to deploy his personal style, which is much rougher and which I absolutely adore. What his talking animal characters have in common is that none of them really fit their job descriptions. And the fox of the title fancies himself, you know, evil and scary, but in fact, he's just not very good at being a fox. And so in order to have a supply of food, he takes a wolf's advice to kidnap some eggs. But when the chicks are born, he's the first thing they see. They think he's their mom, not their dinner. And they also think they're foxes. And chaos and adorableness ensues.
Okay, well, thank you so much, Lisa. We've come to the end of the show. We're going to leave you with The Big Bad Fox and Other Stories. Remember our website. We're also on Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. There's more news coming up on France 24 after this.
Oh, yes. Hi. All right, then. Show us what you can do.
Okay, here we go.
Perfect! That's absolutely perfect!
You liked it? I've got the part.
Oh, yeah, you're exactly what we're looking for. A stupid, puny, ugly, scrawny, pathetic fox. That's it exactly.
But weren't you looking for a big bad fox?
Oh, no. That's just the title. The director chose it. It's supposed to be ironic.